Greetings, viewers. I'm Evan Jarvix with Make Oklahoma Weirder, and this is First Impressions. Hello. Welcome to episode 4. We recorded episodes 1, 2, and 3. They're not available for public viewing. On this episode, we'll be looking at a pretty familiar face, pretty familiar name, especially if you indulge in the Oklahoma folk Americana singer-songwriter community. I'm talking about none other than John Calvin Abney. John Calvin certainly has made his rounds. He's been around for quite some time, touring with a number of artists, participating in album after album as a session musician, playing all sorts of instruments. Most recently, he has made numerous television appearances alongside the one and only John Moreland. But he also has a solo career. Coyote is John Calvin's third full-length album, and it seems to possibly be his biggest to date. He has received accolades from journals of the Americana singer-songwriter lean, as well as from some larger publications such as Rolling Stone, who listed him as one of 10 artists you must know. People are loving this record. They're eating it up, and I don't blame them. It's a good record. Coyote is, in many ways, his most focused effort, I would say. He really zeroes in on this singer-songwriter sort of mentality. Of course, if you're a folk, listener, you kind of know what to expect. Lots of acoustic guitar picking. His vocals pretty laid back, not too showy, which is really a significant thing because, especially as a performer, as a guitarist and whatnot, he can shred, but he chooses not to. He has a very sincere restraint when it comes to making music, and I think he does a really good job of just arranging and curating exactly what he wants to do, and he knows when to hold back, which is really nice. And he does a lot of that here. There are some full band songs. There are some stripped solo songs. It's a very intimate, very sweet sounding, very nice album. It's not too long. He kind of lays down his tracks, comes in, gets out, and sings on a nice little end tag by the end of the album. His instruments are nice. All of his performers are just very organic. It's a very organic feeling album. His lifestyle is very much of one that is on the road, and on the album cover here, you certainly get that. He ponders a lot about his various experiences, and he seems to always be looking for sort of the meaning behind things that come to him in life, whether it be personal experiences, whether it just be certain places, certain times, but just you get a lot of searching, but not necessarily an anguished sense of searching, just kind of maybe a bit of longing that he has to make sense of it all, which he almost damn near quotes in one of his songs. I forget which one, but he wants to go back and find out what all this really means, or something of that nature. I should point out, this is not like a full-blown review where I've taken notes. I've listened to the record a couple times, and these are my first impressions of it. It's a really nice album. That said, I personally was a big fan of his last album, His last album that came out at the end of 2016 to me was a pretty adventurous and a daring album in some ways. I feel like it didn't get quite the recognition that I felt it deserved. It certainly didn't get the accolades that this one is getting. He hadn't zeroed in on this sort of, folk acoustic sound. There was lots of rock and roll still very much in his blood on that album. And personally, I kind of missed that on this album. Also, from a songwriting standpoint, I felt like his lyrics and his overall perspective was so... I did a review on it, and I said something to the effect of he isn't looking for the answers, but he's looking to see if he's even asking the right questions. And I feel like on the new album here, he is a little bit more so looking for the answers. And that's great, and I think that's very appropriate that he's using this kind of music to explore that. Because in many ways, for me, folk music is a great way to kind of boil down really complex situations and really heady issues in life down to a more simplified and digestible delivery. And I think he does that well here. However, just personally, and it's just because he came out with that last album, I think it's more interesting to go off the deep end and really explore beyond the simplicities of folk writing and really get in there and delve into the abyss of your inner self, which I feel like he did somewhat on the last album and maybe doesn't do quite as much on this album. So personally, I'm coming at it with a love for his last album, and in comparison, this is just a lot more quaint. It's a lot more straightforward, I would say. But the themes are still there. It's still very much, he's still, trying to sort of find himself amidst this world that is trying to find itself. Yes. We have one bit of business to attend to. This is Make Oklahoma Weirder. How weird is this album? How weird is this album? I can tell you John Calvin Abney's kind of a weird dude. I've had a couple conversations with him. He's kind of fun, kind of quirky, and I think he definitely has some weirdness that he doesn't necessarily always let fly, especially when it comes to his music. Which is to say, his music is not really that weird. He's a fun guy, kind of a weird guy. But this album, especially, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's pull up the weirdometer, shall we? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm feeling a 2. There's really not much weird about this album. It's pretty straightforward. I wouldn't call it plain, but I would call it pretty normal. So those are my thoughts on the new album. Certainly if you like your guitar picking singer-songwriter styles, with a little bit of, I will give him some credit for mixing things up a little bit in the studio. Each song kind of has a different flair to it. I like it when he overdubs his vocals, so you don't always get that pure stripped down sensibility. Sometimes he does monkey around with the mixing some and with the arrangements. So if you're into that, if you're into something that it's not like traditional folk music, but it pays homage to traditional folk music while still kind of moving the genre forward, but without being very radical about it. If that sounds like it's up your alley, it's a good album. You should check it out. So thanks for watching. Hopefully I'm going to be doing these videos once a week. That's the plan. There's so many albums. Even doing once a week, I'm not even going to touch all of them. There's so much music coming out. But I hope to cover as much as I can through this series. If I can get extra bonus episodes out, I totally will. If you have any recommendations, if you're in a band even, feel free to send me music. I may not be able to get to everything, but I'm going to try. There's a lot of music out there. I want to cover it. So thanks for hanging out. And yeah, I'll see you on the next episode.
Fish head soup is a mighty fine soup, even though it's kind of green.